Welcome back to another video about how to heal adoption and narcissistic abuse. If you are new to my channel, my name is Lærke Theodora. I work as a spiritual and psychological counselor, and I am an adoptee myself. In this video, I want to talk about my path to manifesting my ideal adult life as an adopted person. I think this topic is very interesting and it's very relevant. And this is something that a lot of people, they come to me in personal sessions and talk about, that they really want to move from point A to point B, which is their ideal adult life as an adopted person, but they don't know how to get there. But they know how it looks like, which is very important in this process. They know how their ideal life looks like, and they know how it feels like. They can see it with their eyes, they can imagine it. And that is very important, and it's very powerful when we are creating this ideal adult life as an adopted person. So how do we go from point A to point B? What is this bridge that we can't see yet, this invisible bridge that we are about to build and then cross over to arrive at point B? So I want to use my own personal story as an example, because I know that when we share personal stories, it's easier to relate to it for those who are listening. I want to start from the beginning. I want to talk about my starting point. Where was I when I was at point A, and what ended up becoming this bridge that I could use to cross over to arrive at point B. My starting point began probably about 4 years ago. I was writing my master thesis on my master degree. I was writing about adoption. And the fact that I decided to write about adoption was a very difficult decision. And I experienced a lot of pushback from my adoptive family. A lot of pushback, like unexpected pushback. And then it wasn't that unexpected when I think about it afterwards. But by the time, I definitely didn't need that pushback. But when I look back now, the pushback was actually what ended up pushing me forward to continue with my decision about writing about adoption, researching about adoption for my master thesis. So it wasn't all that bad to experience the pushback. When it happened, it was extremely uncomfortable, of course. But afterwards, when I look back, I can see it was actually not a bad thing after all. I found myself in the beginning of 2021. I reached a point where I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't take being surrounded by people that kept making me feel wrong for listening to myself, for listening to my needs, for expressing myself authentically. I simply couldn't take it anymore. And a lot of these people I was surrounded by, they were part of my adoptive family. On top of the relational aspect that I was dealing with, the relational trauma that I realized at that point that I had been exposed to a very high degree, it had also manifested through my body as physical illness. And I had literally been struggling with that since I was in the beginning of my 20s. And now I am almost 33. So I had reached a point in my life where I was simply done. I was done. I was emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually exhausted. And I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't take being surrounded by people that kept making me feel wrong, because I had experienced that since I was born, even since before I was born, even since I was in my mother's womb. I felt wrong because she felt wrong about giving birth to me, because she was not allowed to keep me. So that feeling of feeling wrong for existing, for being the person that I am, for showing up authentically. It just got the best of me. But it got the best of me in a positive way, because that also became that push that I needed to step out of that arena and say, no more. It ends here. And now I'm going to live a completely different life. And if you can't show up the way that is respectful to me, if you can't acknowledge and validate my emotions, if you can't respect that I am responsible for my life and you are responsible for your life, and I'm not responsible for your life, I'm not responsible for your feelings, I'm not responsible for your actions. If you can't do that, if you are a person in my life that can't do that, then you can't come with me while I'm building this bridge and going from point A to point B. You simply can't come with me, because that will require that you show up in a totally different way towards me. And when I made that commitment, when I made that decision, I was literally being lifted out of that arena. That's how I experienced it. It was not difficult. That is not to say that it wasn't painful, but the little experience of being lifted out of that arena was not difficult. It was like there was a higher force. It was like the universe was literally answering my call, saying, yes, I'm going to help you out of this arena now, because you have just pointed out what it is that you want to focus on and what it is that you want to have in your life moving forward. And I'm going to give you that. And therefore, I'm going to help you be removed from that arena. That's my spiritual experience of it. So to sum up, I had reached a point where I had enough. And this is something we see with people who have been abused, typically. People who grow up in very abusive families, people who have been in abusive romantic relationships. They reach a point where they just had enough. And then it's like they are kind of empty at that point. They're empty of emotions, they're empty of thoughts, they're empty of fear, because they have surrendered to being done, right? They are done. So they have surrendered to that. And when they surrender to that, no thought, no emotion, no fear can stop them from moving forward, can stop them from proceeding with taking action upon that decision. It's like they reach a new standpoint. They reach a new level of awareness where no one and nothing can affect it at all. Nothing in the outer circumstances can affect it at all. And that will make the ball roll. So now I had started the process of beginning to build the bridge. I was about to design, how is this bridge going to look like? So now I had arrived to the stage where I was going to find out, how can I build a solid bridge that will take me to point B? I had to look at, what do I have in my current life that I can't take with me further? And what do I have in my current life that I can't take with me further? So I literally had to go through all the relationships in my life, all the people that was in my life. I had to literally do this selection process and saying, this is where I'm going. Do you want to come with me? Because then you have to check all these marks, like I just said previously. But then I also had to figure out what was stopping me from building a solid bridge. Why had I not built it earlier? Why was I seeing myself now, almost turning 30, realizing I need to build a new bridge so I can arrive to point B? Why did I not build it earlier? And that made me take a really, really deep dive into myself and look at my belief system. What was I believing that was forming my perception of reality? Because all our beliefs, they are affecting our perception of reality. I wouldn't say they are directly our perception of reality, but they are really affecting our perception of reality. And I needed to look at these beliefs and say, which beliefs can support me building this bridge, and which beliefs would sabotage the process of building that bridge. And a lot of the beliefs, they were connected to my inner child. And that made me realize, okay, if I'm going to work on my belief system, I'm going to work with my inner child. I'm going to co-work with my inner child, because I won't be able to get to point B without my inner child is going to build that bridge with me. Because our inner child represents all our core needs, all our core emotions, which are fear, anger, sadness, and happiness. And these core beliefs is a very important element of the foundation that we want to create when we arrive at point B. So I realized I can't build the adult life that I want as an adopted person if I don't build it with my inner child. And that led me to a very interesting process of doing a lot of internal healing work with my inner child. That was literally only concentrated on working with my inner child. And one of the things that I found was that there was a lot of guided meditations on YouTube that was concentrating on working with your inner child, healing your inner child. And when I was in this process, what was so fascinating to realize about this inner child healing work was that your inner child won't just instantly trust you. Like if you did the first meditation, guided meditation, where you work with your inner child, and you expect your inner child to be like, oh, long time no see, how are you doing? Oh, it's you, I'm gonna trust you. Like I will forget all the times that you just abandoned me, neglected me, suppressed me, forgot about me, made me feel alone, made me be sad. It won't. Your inner child remembers everything. That's what I realized about my own inner child. She remembers every single thing that happened to her, and she won't forget it until you give her the comfort, the validation, the reassurance that she needs. Otherwise, she will continue to make you accountable for all the times that she was left alone dealing with all this shit. I think to be realistic about inner child work, we need to understand that our inner child will need time to trust us again, to rely on us. Because fact is, we were never there for our inner child. And that's why we are so hurt as adults, because the inner child is the foundation of our core self. So that's why we have this feeling of being kind of like fragmented or divided as adopted people, or in general people who grew up in abusive families, but also for adopted people who might not grow up in an abusive adoptive family. But the adoption experience alone can create this separation, this fragmentation of our core self. So after I had really committed to work on gaining my inner child's trust again, I could move on, and then I could look at all the resources that I already possessed within me that could help me create this bridge that would take me from my starting point, point A, to my desired state, point B. What I think is so interesting about this process is that when we begin looking at ourselves in a different perspective, and of course that requires that we have worked on our belief system, right? We have taken out all the beliefs that does not support us in building this bridge, that won't support us in the life that we want to live. When we have eliminated that, it would place them with new and more positive and supportive beliefs, then we will be able to look at ourselves in a way clearer perspective. But the beliefs, they had to go. They have to be removed in order for us to see clearly. And then when we can see clearly, we will be able to first of all see that we are already resourceful and that we are already whole within. We are not broken. We might be hurt. We might be damaged, but we are not broken. We are not broken people. We were placed in a childcare system that was broken. We were placed in adoptive families that were dysfunctional. But we were never broken, because no one can break us. No one can take and rip out our soul. That's not possible. So when we realize that about ourselves, when we realize we are already whole within, then we can tap into that in a totally different way without any blockages that's stopping us. And that's what's going to help build this bridge that we are about to cross over. And so the next thing that followed after this was to celebrate all the tiny steps that I had taken from when I started at point A to begin building my bridge and then arriving at point B. I had to begin actively celebrating all the new learnings that I had received, all the new beliefs that I have added into my belief system, that I had replaced from all the old negative limiting beliefs. I had to celebrate my courage for making such a difficult change in my life and leaving a lot of people behind, knowing that my starting point from the beginning of my life was to lose the most important person in my life. So that decision of leaving a lot of people in this process was very, very difficult. And I just want to highlight that for all the adopted people who are watching this video, that this is not easy. And if you think it's difficult, if you feel like it's difficult, it's because it is. I know that this is not an easy place to be. But when we begin celebrating all our achievements, it will amplify our devotion to continue to build this bridge and to eventually create this amazing adult life as an adopted person. But it will require a devotion that you might never have experienced before in your life. It will require a commitment that no one has ever addressed for you before. It will require that you tap into this strength within you in a way that you haven't done before. Because building this bridge is something you haven't done before, right? I had never built a bridge like this before because I had never lived this adult life, ideal adult life as an adult adoptee before. So I was building it as I was walking on it. That's how I choose to see it. And that means that we will run into challenges, we will run into obstacles, we will run into periods where we feel stuck, and we will experience that sometimes when we are taking 2 steps forward, we also take 4 steps backwards. But we can't let all these obstacles stop us from continue building this bridge. And maybe we shouldn't see it as a linear process. Maybe we should see it as a circular, dynamic process, because that's how we also heal all that happened to us. It's not a linear process. I still find myself healing things that happened when I was separated from my biological mother. And this might be things that I had worked on so intensively 10 years ago, and that I had found this drawer to put it in order to continue rebuilding my life. But still, even after arriving at point B, which is my ideal adult life, I still have to heal stuff, because every day, every single minute of my life, I am learning new things. I am gaining new knowledge and wisdom, which helps me continue to heal what happened to me. And that's how I choose to see it. And sometimes I run into people that will completely trigger my abandonment wound, that will completely trigger my old beliefs that I thought I had the control over. And then I have to heal it again. I have to work on it again. I have to use this new knowledge, use the new perspectives and the new wisdom that I have gained and received, and then go work one more time on these beliefs. I hope that by sharing my story, it can support you in your healing process wherever you are. Maybe at point A, maybe you're in the middle of the bridge, maybe you have arrived at point B. No matter where you are in your process, I just want to take a moment to celebrate that you are in a process, because that is the most important step you can ever take when recovering from being adopted, when recovering from being raised by abusive adoptive parents. Being in a process is the destination. So you have already arrived at point B, no matter how you want to look at it, because the process is the arrival. So that's all I have for you now. I will see you in my next video. And if you need more healing, if you need more support, I highly recommend that you check out my new book that I have just published. I will put a link in the description box below. Until then, I am sending you all my love. I'm sending you all my blessings, and I will see you in my next video. Bye for now.